and welcome to the Flag Motorsport Podcast. My name is Charlie Roscoe. I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Ryan and Willie. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello.
G'day.
Now, we've got a big week, big episode this week even, because, of course, it was the Bathurst 1000, and it's a fairly big and substantial thing in Australian motorsport, a big weekend, you could say. And, of course, there's also the Formula One from Suzuka, which I think might be a good spot to start. If, of course, it was the same day as Bathurst, which is never ideal for us, given that we've already watched, I think, at that point, like 7 hours of motorsport or something.
And then some.
And then, unfortunately as well, just to make things slightly worse, it probably wasn't the most interesting of Formula One races, was it?
No. Not even a little bit, really.
It just, it was one of those things. Another shocking weekend for Ferrari, of course. Kimi Räikkönen did end up in a fifth, which is something. But
isn't it funny though that now that they've got theoretically, the best car on the grid, suddenly they're plagued with issues.
Yeah, it is funny actually. I saw a Facebook meme with a Honda logo on the back of the Ferrari, which I thought was a bit savage, but nonetheless, I couldn't help but have a little bit of a laugh at it. But yeah, more shocking luck for Sebastian Vettel, and to be honest, I think his championship hunt is all but over.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can't see it coming back from here. Hamilton's too good, really. The Mercedes don't seem to be having any issues. They can seem to turn it on when they want. Really, I think he just cruised around at the front. There wasn't really any pressure on him or anything like that. Like, it was only just over a second, 1.2, finishing to Max Verstappen. And he was closing in at the end, but really, I think Lewis pretty much just ran his own race.
I think so. I mean, obviously, the Red Bull actually looked a little bit stronger, I thought, on the soft compound tyre, on the yellow banded soft. And towards the end, actually, it was getting a little bit intense on two fronts, because Max Verstappen really was hunting down Lewis, and a bit of traffic helped there initially, but of course it sort of ruined the race as well. It's a shame that Max hadn't have done that just about 2 laps prior, because it would have been a pretty good end to the race with, although it was Bottas chasing down Ricciardo, so he had some pace at the end, and Danny Ric was running out. Of course, Bottas was on the red banded super soft at that point, if memory serves me. But Max Verstappen was hunting down Lewis as well, so a couple of more laps and we might have had a real good fight on our hands. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be.
No, and it wasn't a good race for Carlos Sainz. He crashed out. It was very early on, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
First
and
lap.
Look, speaking of Carlos Sainz, of course, and Jolyon Palmer, it was their final race for their respective teams, of course.
Yes.
With Jolyon Palmer, or it being announced that he's out. Jolyon Palmer is out, and Carlos Sainz is going to be going to the factory Renault team for the remainder of the season. And as if Toro Rosso didn't know this was coming, Pierre Gasly, of course, will remain in the team, and Kvyat will be back to fill that other spot. So, not that surprised it happened, but I think they initially wanted that to happen as soon as they announced that Palmer was not being renewed next year. They've got Carlos Sainz for the following season. I think they wanted Sainz to jump straight on in, but it didn't happen for him. Palmer, I think, sort of came back and said, my contract is tight. I have a spot for the rest of the season, and I expect to be there. But I would imagine they came up with some sort of funding, some sort of payout that convinced him to otherwise step aside early. That's the impression I get, anyway.
Yeah, and it's probably one of his better races for the season. Kept pretty clean and quiet.
Who's that, Palmer?
Which is unlike him.
He did plug away. Having said that, though, he didn't finish all that strongly. He was in front of Pierre Gasly. But, yeah, I mean, he was a lap down. He was, fourth last? There was a few DNFs, though, which is one of those things. But, yeah.
Yeah. The McLarens finished the race as well. Something.
They did.
Both of them. Something that hasn't really been happening. So it'll be interesting to see how the engine goes for the rest of the season with the whole swap about and all the rest for next year.
Well, I mean, it's funny, they did finish. They had the reliability and they finished, which has got to be a huge priority for them at the company's home race in Japan. But they weren't competitive. Yeah. They weren't competitive at all. They were actually overall really, really slow. And of course, I was saying about Jolyon Palmer finishing a lap down in 12th place, but Alonso was only one in front of him, still a lap down. So it wasn't a great race for them, but the one team that probably did benefit from that is the Haas Formula One team. They did quite well, 8th and 9th, Magnussen outdoing Grosjean, but at least they both finished, and they both finished relatively strongly. I thought it was a fairly good showing by Haas.
Yeah, they're very inconsistent. There's a bit of inconsistency amongst the teams this year, so it makes it a little bit weird. Some results get thrown up a little bit, so yeah, good to see them finish rather than crash out or...
For sure. Well, it's actually put them 1 point in front of Renault now in the constructors' standings. So, Haas has jumped up to 43, which I thought was quite good. Renault down to 42. That won't make them happy. And, look, I don't think they're going to catch Toro Rosso, but you never know. They might. There's a few races left for the year, so a bit interesting to see where that finishes up. But, of course, the main problem is the drivers' standings, and Lewis Hamilton jumping out to a huge lead over Sebastian Vettel. In fact, if anything... Seb's got to start worrying about Bottas, who has actually closed that gap down to 13 points. Yeah. So, it's a bit of a shame that the season, because I think at this point it's going to be very hard to see Hamilton losing this. He really needs 2 DNFs in the remaining seasons, whilst Vettel goes on to win. A couple of DNFs and he'll, the race is back on. But I think for now, Lewis just has to finish. If any of the Red Bulls or even his teammate or whatever, or even Vettel, if they want to fight him for the win, he's better off just to let him go. He's just got to keep the points ticking over, keep the podium ticking over, and he'll be just fine. So, it is one of those things. It was good to see Max strong, no issues. Daniel Ricciardo again, another podium, which is good. I have to check the stats, but that's quite a few consecutive podiums in a row now. It is actually, yeah. It's I think it is Danny Rick's 8th podium. I'm just trying to find here. It might say here it's 8 out of the last 11 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or 7 it could be. But either way, he's had a good string of podiums lately, and another double for Red Bull, which was good. And as you say, Verstappen looking strong again. Probably not great for Danny Rick that Verstappen was looking so strong. It's probably time for him to fix that. But one thing I will quickly look up, I don't know if you guys saw it, but Ricciardo managed to get hold of Hamilton's phone, and Hamilton was on Instagram.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Instagram. I'm just going to see if I can quickly find that. And there we go. There's news stories about it everywhere. ESPN, I got a story here. I should have the pictures. So, yeah, typical Dan, just playing it up, having a bit of fun, which is good to see. Because it'd be easy at that point, I think, to, to be dissatisfied with getting outdone by your teammates. But, yeah, at least he's having a bit of fun with it. So... Good on him. But ultimately, I hate to say it, but it was a bit of a boring race. That's the final take on Japan. It was a boring race. The championship is all but over. So a bit of a shame to see F1 go down that path at the moment. But nonetheless, it is what it is. We've got a couple of rounds to go, so hopefully we've got some exciting ones ahead of us. But I think that'll just about do for Formula 1. It's probably time we flip over to what is... comfortably the biggest race in Australia, I would have said, for the year. I mean, of course, the Formula 1's here, the MotoGP is here. That's great on an international scale, but I think domestically we can all agree the Bathurst 1000 is probably the biggest race on the calendar.
For Australians, yes. That's definitely.
Yeah, on the Australian calendar, sorry. I want to specify that specifically. But it is growing internationally, though. There's a lot more people overseas starting to watch Bathurst.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of a bit of a different issue in itself. Apparently, they were saying they were broadcasting 70 countries and all that sort of stuff. But on that conversation, I did see that a lot of people were complaining about the fact that they couldn't even access it, even though they were paying to get it. So
Really?
that's something. That's another ballpark figure to talk about. But
Okay, interesting.
Good weekend all in all.
It was an interesting race. A new winner, and it's the second year in a row that we've got probably. Well,
I mean, before we even get to the race,
yeah.
I mean, you gotta talk about qualifying.
Yeah, that's true. Let's go back. Let's see if I can find the quality results. But yeah, absolutely. How was Scotty Mack in qualifying?
The pace for the weekend, the whole lot was pretty shit hot. I think it was Wincup's quickest lap was I think a 5.0, which was from 2015, and
4.9 in practice 6 last year.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and it just got smashed.
Yep.
It's
absolutely
I'm just
smashed.
looking up the shootout results now, obviously, and as you're saying, just going through again though. Davey Reynolds doing well.
Well, that's the big thing, and I think they did mention it on the broadcast that David Reynolds' shootout lap really got hampered by the fact that Scotty Mack did what he did, but for David Reynolds to go out there and do a 2.042, that's pretty good driving.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, he said he was quite conservative too, just because of the conditions. He wasn't sure of the grip. Obviously, you don't want to throw it away the day before the big race, stuff like that. So he said he was a little bit conservative. He said, looking back on it now, he said as you do it at the end of every lap like that, you realise that you could have pushed a lot harder in pretty much everywhere.
I think that's kind of the thing with top 10 shootouts, though, isn't it? There's a part of you, I think, that you have to be conservative. Probably Scott McLaughlin wasn't, but you have to be conservative to a degree because it's your only shot. You don't have a second lap. You can't go back to the pits, put on a new set of greens, go again. Of course, the worst you can come is 10th from the top 10 shootout, unless you get disqualified. But at the same time, I think there's always that bit of conservatism. So he can't have gone too bad, though. 204.2 is no slouch. And, of course, they were running last year's tyres because this year's were too soft, I believe.
Yeah, just with the issues of the blowouts and inconsistency that they've had with, I think it's like curbing that is a main issue, but it's constant pressure on them for like sweeping corners and the constant load and things like that. So they took the safe option and went back to last year's tyres. But in saying that, I was actually really surprised to see the Shell V-Power Racing team, like Team Penske, be as strong as they were with those tyres, because they had a little bit of pace last year, but this year they've sort of come right out of the box, almost like they've found something extra, or they have found something extra. Crazy for them to be able to work everywhere this year and on those tyres at Bathurst. And Red Bull really struggled with the brake balance.
The main thing, though, that they had this year is Scotty McLaughlin. They didn't have that last year.
Yeah, that's a key thing, isn't it?
Fabian Coulthard, thereabouts. He qualified, I think it was like 7th or something in the shootout. But yeah, essentially, to only get 7th is not that great when your teammate is over a second up the road. Like he was 1.1 seconds quicker, and it really does showcase Scotty's talents. Like he was quicker than anybody by a mile in the Volvo.
Well, the stupid thing about that lap of Scotty McLaughlin, it wasn't even perfect. If you remember at the at the top of the mountain,
I thought it was
he
done.
actually ran out on the gravel. I thought, he was up in sector. No, he wouldn't have hit sector 2 by then, but he was up at the end of sector 1.
Yeah, he was 1/10 up at the end of sector 1. 2 wheels out in the dirt at McPhillamy, going over Skyline into the S's. He was a bit shaky, and then came out of the elbow 3.5 tenths up. I'm like, are you bloody kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was up there and then jumped up a little bit more again, I think exiting the chase, because they put the delta of his 4.1, like 204.1 lap in. And when he did that lap, he came out of the chase and had a big slide and lost a bit of time there. So having a clean run through there, smashed it. It was good to see. I remember when I was watching it, because Reynolds was in front. I'm a Holden bloke, so I was pretty happy to see Reynolds there, especially being they're only a small team, so good on him. And I remember yelling at the TV. I'm like, it's got to be a 3 or get out of it.
Yeah.
And he got 3.
It's just insane. I mean, to see that sort of lap, and I was talking with my friend that was here. We're watching the race, and I thought, what's the difference between that and Greg Murphy's lap of the gods? I mean, he absolutely destroyed the rest of the field. Absolutely unheard of lap.
Yeah,
and it was done in the top 10 shootout. So for me, it's no different. It's just exactly the same.
Yeah.
Well, they say that it smashed it. Like it's a quicker time, but they're quicker cars.
they
when
are.
Greg Murphy did his was, I think, a second quicker than everybody else. So like Scotty's half a second, and he went into dropped into the threes, which is he's the only person to do that, and they're starting to get bloody quick up there. But I'd like to know what makes them so much quicker this year.
Oh, they'd be
especially that they're on an old tyre. But like you look at the last couple of years, they haven't made this sort of a gain.
No, but that sort of intrigued me a little bit to think, well, what if they were on the newer tyre? Because that's generally where you're picking it up. But obviously, there's a lot of gains within the car as well, whether it be engine or aero or suspension or something like that.
Aero wouldn't have changed in the last couple of years, though.
But like
they have been able to run less wing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you're learning different setups and all that, and the way that it all works together, the way the car works. It's just, it's very interesting to see what the difference would be, especially seeing as though, as you said, on last year's tyres, and to be so much faster, like so much faster.
It's the whole lap setup. Someone knows how to set the car up for a single lap as well, because their quality performances are phenomenal. Just watching that lap of Scotty Mack going over the top of the mountain now, and just their one lap pace and how stable that thing looks. But the race pace has obviously been good as well. It's not like he hasn't been winning races. He has, of course. But I don't know. There's something about their one lap pace is just untouchable. It's amazing. And
it's him again, isn't it? Yeah. They've just got the right ingredients at the moment. There's few teams that do it over the years. Like you got good people, but then you've got other people that are just got that special blend at the right time. And Scotty's one of those blokes. It's sort of like what Wing Cup had a few years back.
Well, that's it. And I mean, I think the biggest thing for me, looking at 888 throughout the week, a lot of people were saying, Shane Van Gisbergen and Wing Cup, they're nowhere. Like, where are they? I think for me, they probably spent the whole week just concentrating on the race.
Yeah. Knowing
full well, doesn't matter where you bloody start the thing. Sure, it'd be nice to be up the front, but what we want is a bloody strong race car on Sunday.
Yeah, as it turned out,
it's bloody at it.
Yeah, you look at Giz's fortunes over the day, or the car's fortunes over the day. Off the track,
7
flat
times.
Out. Yeah. Up and down through the field, but just blistering pace. Like right at the end, he was leading, ran off, come back to a third.
How quickly though? When he went off at the start,
what I mean, yeah,
he was back there like that, no worries.
Yep, and then ran off. What about when he went into the chase? Went in with that much pace and he wanted to get through there and back on. And
how he didn't roll that car? I don't know.
It ripped the tyre off the bead. Like, they don't rip the tyres off the bead at the top of the mountain. And it did it there. It ripped the side skirt off. Yeah. But then he still come back and finished 5th. And he had to go in and put another tyre on.
Yep.
Like, his pace was freakish towards the end.
Unreal pace. But that's sort of, for me, it painted a picture. And I think that the PRA cars from very early set themselves up for a wet race. Because when it got wet, the wetter it got, the faster those cars were. But as soon as it started drying out again, the pace just dropped out of them. You look at the 888 cars, you look at the basically a lot of the Commodores, they just turned on. The drier it was, the better those cars were. BJR cars at the end, really fast. The 888 cars, obviously Shane Van Gisbergen, extremely fast. But so many of the Commodores and even Moffat, really, really, really fast at the end of the race there. So to see that sort of different aspect, it was good to see people going different directions with the race.
That's what made it hard towards the end too, I guess, because there was a dry line, but the edge of the track was wet and greasy.
Yeah.
And being their car was starting to turn on, as you said, in the dry conditions, so they're getting quicker and quicker and quicker. And then, like, you look at Moff, it took no time. It was, probably half a tyre width, maybe a fraction over, if that.
Yeah.
He just touched the wet line, and then, off into the tyre. And that's what happened to Giz as well, down at the chase. Just that little bit wide and straight off. Yeah, one car I'm very surprised about the result is the fourth place by Dale Wood and Chris Pither in the other Erebus car.
Yeah, for sure.
Up 17 positions, which for them is phenomenal. And then you've got somebody, so this is all to do with setup as well, obviously, but they stayed out of trouble.
Yeah.
Craig Lowndes and Stephen Richards did nothing. Like, you look at their results and they were up 8 positions.
Yeah.
But they got lapped early on. They got stuck at the back. Nothing happened. Like, with that, if Lowndes going to stay in it, Richards is a good co-driver, but he is not quick enough. He's just the guy who just goes out, keeps the car in the position it's in, and brings it back safe. So when it's at the back of the field, that's where you stay.
Yeah.
And then Timmy Slade as well, like you're saying about quick cars. They were quick. But what was going on? Because at one point, I thought it was his drink bottle and he was dehydrated because he got the other drink, but then there was water. Whatever was in that, unless that was from something else in the car, that he's pouring all over his face in the pit stops. But to see him come down the pit lane, loosen his belts when he wasn't even getting out of the car.
Yeah.
And there's that shot when it pulled up and his
head
flings forward, like when he's just smashed.
I've read a few things about it all, and like a lot of people were saying he was dehydrated, but yeah, he said that wasn't the case. He was just using the water that was in his drink bottle to spray his face. Apparently, they forgot to fill his dry ice one pit stop because of they were trying to clear the screen so much,
right?
And they just
like a hot
didn't have
water
the
bottle.
time. Yeah, so essentially it was like a hot water bottle. That didn't work. And then they were trying to fix that as well as doing the screen in another one. That's when they didn't change his drink bottle. So then he had no drink bottle and he's running a hot suit. And just there was no cool fan because they forgot to put that on the wrong thing. So it was a massive series of things that came together.
And once you overheat as well, it's very, very hard to undo that without getting out, stripping down layers, jumping in an ice bath or what have you. It's very difficult once you're cooking yourself and overheating. It's very hard to come back from that and kind of cool down in the car in the same gear.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that you're working as hard as you are.
Yeah, exactly.
To keep the car on the road in those conditions.
Yeah, well, wet weather's always more difficult to drive in. It's a lot more physical. There's a lot more wheel work and everything like that. So, it's a lot tougher. And as I say, once you cook yourself, doesn't matter if they put dry ice back in then. It's going to be very, very hard to cool yourself down and get normalise your temperature, I suppose.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So, I mean, taking it back to the start of the race, as soon as it started raining on their outlap, I thought, Jesus, we are going to be on for a race here.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to be as wet, though. It just stayed wet.
It poured down. Like, it was interesting. It was dry on the grid, but the amount of people running off all day was phenomenal. In the end, you didn't even care. Like, normally in the Bathurst 1000, someone runs off at it was the final turn and turn 1 were two of the popular spots, because obviously there's the runoff there and it's a hard braking zone. But there was so much of it, you just didn't care. Like, every lap, one or two people were running off each time. And the weather was just so wet. And at times over the top of the mountain, they were really slow. Like, they were pedestrian in pace.
Well, there was, a lot of the time they were doing 240s in that. So, that's a ridiculous amount of speed to be doing. But it just shows the conditions. And, that's where, for me, I don't care who's in the car, to get as far as we did without a safety car, and then the first safety car due to a mechanical malfunction, not somebody putting it in the wall.
That's it, and that was like 70
unreal.
Or something, wasn't it?
I think it was lap 90. It was lap 90,
no, 74. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever it was,
74,
it was late. Given it was pissing with rain at Bathurst, one of the hardest races of the year, one of the most technical tracks, I suppose you could probably go to. Pouring with rain, cars with no traction control, ABS, nothing like that, and to go that many laps without a safety car, that was pretty. It was pretty phenomenal to see that. But it actually kind of made
it's just so unforgiving.
Yeah, But to be honest, if you ignored the runoffs, or once you got over the fact that a lot of people were running off, because there was nothing really going on, it was all pretty pedestrian and slow, it kind of did make the start of the race, I won't say boring, but a little bit less interesting than you might expect the conditions to bring out, I suppose.
Well, we were talking about it. There was a point in the middle just before the safety car, and we said we need one because there was big gaps. Like,
it was huge. Yeah, the field was that spread out, weren't they?
Yeah, like the Waters car, like they were so far in front, and they had phenomenal pace all day. And then once the first safety car came out, they got smashed. But there was just such big gaps between all the cars. If it stayed that way, it would only take, I suppose later on in the race, if it stayed that way for longer and more cars got lapped, because they were starting to lap quite a few cars, there weren't going to be that many on the lead lap, and then it really wouldn't be that interesting if there's only sort of a handful left. But at least when that came out, it gave the race another kick. Yeah,
but at the same time, though, I wouldn't take it away from anyone, and however it went. I feel for Waters and Stanaway, because not so much for Waters because, well, he didn't really do that much, but watching the onboards while Stanaway was at the wheel was a bloody masterclass.
Yeah, Waters did in his next stint.
He did, actually. In his next stint after that, and Stanaway in his next stint actually didn't go so well. So I would definitely say it was a combined effort to sort of get where they were and keep it. And I did feel sorry for them because they led the vast majority of the day. I think they had the better looking car. It was good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's where it comes back for me. It comes back that they had the car set up too wet. So Stanaway was able to do more in the wet and be able to get away with a bit more. Whereas as soon as it started drying out, particularly having Percat on those slicks early and just watching him come up, like the laps, as soon as it started getting that tiny little line, they went from 230s to 212s like in 2 laps, whilst the other guys were sort of trundling around a bit. So obviously there was that massive risk of, you touch a millimetre off the line and you're done.
Yeah.
But, we pay these guys the big bucks to do this job properly. And they did it. Like they were very, very good. It was good to see, actually, the changing conditions, the changing strategies, and all the different ideals and things that happened. I actually thought it was a pretty fantastic race.
Yeah, overall, I think it was, and certainly the last part of it. So once the track started drying out, it became a super intense and really, really, really cool race. Actually, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was good then because you saw guys coming through, like as we mentioned about Giz's strong pace, but also it knocked out a few heavy hitters, Moffat into the wall, Winterbottom into the wall, Percat, they had their issue, James Courtney into the wall, where that same car went in, or not the same car, but his car a couple of years back with Greg Murphy, Garth Tander into the wall as well. So there's quite a few guys there that
Garth Tander
should know
into
better.
The wall with a bit of assistance from Mostert, who then hit the back of Waters, which is what took them out of the race.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but that's the thing, like, near the end, it was just this absolute schmozzle of people trying to finish the race, and all these big hitters just keep falling from the front.
Yeah, Tander took himself out, though, didn't he? It was a turn 3. He just went too deep and hit the wall.
Well, the question I want to know is how many of these...
The turn 1 incident, because he had damage. Apparently that was what caused the lock-up.
Yeah, okay.
But, yeah, that's why I saw it today anyway.
Yep.
But yeah, so, yeah, interesting, but the rise from position, seeing Reynolds come through, it was good to see. I mean, I've never really been my hand up as a Reynolds fan, but I can appreciate the drive. And as they say,
he's a good driver in a car that's sort of on its way developing, I suppose. Small team, but it was good to see because early on I thought they might be there for the sort of the first part of the race, but then fall away towards the end. But they did fantastic, and being a small team, great job. But who isn't doing a great job is Techno. Jonathan Webb, probably he probably shouldn't be in it again next year.
Not his finest year, was it?
No, too aggressive, too stupid, just dumb mistakes. Davo didn't really have any pace either, but that could be due to setup and then Webb's part obviously not helping. They also had Adrian Burgess in the garage, so it'd be interesting to see whether he stays there. But Yeah, very.
But that's the thing for me. You know, they had Techno had a lot. They've got the money. They've got Davo. He's not the best of drivers on the grid, but he's definitely, you could safely say, a possible top 10 with a good car. But to see, you know, Campbell Little in the pits with Adrian Burgess, you know, they've got this really good team behind them. It's still the same team subjectively that almost got Gizzy the championship there. So what's the difference? And I think that there's a lot of change that's happened behind the field. I mean, if you look at Techno from a different standpoint, where they've completely cancelled all of their GT racing. They used to run the McLarens. They don't do any of that anymore. There is a bit of rumour going around that, you know, that the team doesn't have any money. To be totally honest, if they put their hand up and said, look, we're not going to be on the grid next year, I wouldn't be that surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might.
The money part of it, like they've just opened a big brand new multi-million-dollar factory.
Yeah, but that's a different avenue though. So that's more about their car company, the modifying the car stuff for Techno Autosport, not their racing stuff.
Yeah.
So you know they've got massive contracts with Holden to do legitimate aftermarket modifications to the cars and all that sort of stuff. So there is money in different avenues for Techno. But yeah, just what happens with their racing, I don't know. It just doesn't, to me, it just doesn't seem like it's there the same as what it once was. Just on the sheer base that, yeah, look at the effort that they've gone into putting this whole thing together. For Webb to come in and really, they didn't do anything at Sandown, and Bathurst was horrible. He was a late call himself, like he called himself up quite late in the game. After doing pretty much no other racing this year.
I think that really showed through as well at Bathurst. Like he was pretty good with gears, as you say. It was the same. He was the same, teammate that Van Gisbergen nearly won the 2014.
Well, he nearly went with the Red Bull last year. Remember, there was all the talk that he was going to team up with Giz last year.
Yeah,
he was going to leave his own team and drive with Giz in Red Bull team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for me, there seems to be a big shift. I mean, I've been told by a couple of different people that there just doesn't seem to be the money in it for the racing aspect anymore from Techno. So I think, you know, first off, I think Will should be quite worried about his seat there, because I don't believe Will's paying for a seat or he's bringing any money to the table.
No, I heard that he may not be in the seat next year anyway. So
yeah,
I don't know
what
if that's... Whether the team look elsewhere or they close.
Yeah. So whether they close the doors or pick up someone who generally probably shouldn't be in the category, but they're paying the bill, so will turn up.
Yeah.
Now, the last thing I want is for another team to throw out another, a grid filler. But, you know, it'd be interesting to see. What I would like to see would be potentially for 888 or someone else to pick up that RAC and run it properly with a full team, which I guess brings us. Yes, yeah. Which, you know,
probably without Davo driving, I'd suggest.
Yeah, look, they've got some options. It could be a big option as well for Stanaway to get to a drive there, because as we're looking at the moment, it looks very likely he could end up at PRA. But after watching Bathurst, do you really want to be at PRA?
He'll take... Well, yeah, I reckon so. They're on the up there. Besides 888 and Penske, they're the next best team, quite comfortably.
But I mean...
And, well, I suppose the other news too, on talking about teams, is what's going to happen with Walkinshaw, now that it's going to be Walkinshaw... Oh, what is it? Walkinshaw, Andretti United.
Yeah.
Walkinshaw, Andretti United, yeah. I mean... To me, that's the biggest news that the category has seen in probably the last 5 to 6 years. Like, it's, for me, bigger than Penske coming over. Because not only do you have Andretti, who, well, let's face it, he's got just as much money as Penske. He's probably not as successful as an individual racer. But his motorsport teams are very impressive. The way that he can work across all the different aspects. And they've got multiple aspects. So they got the Formula E, they're doing the NASCAR, they're doing the IndyCar, they're doing World Rallycross. So a lot of different fingers in different pies. So for them to come over, but then to pair that with the fact that
they don't have their finger in Scott Pie, their new driver.
Scott Pie would probably he'd probably accept a lot of different things at the moment because I was saying this with my mate. He's got this complete knack of being in the right team at the wrong time, and for me, he's much like Alonso of the supercars. He was in Penske and got booted the year that they got competitive. He's currently in the Walkinshaw team, but that could change by the time they actually start getting fast. Because obviously they're not going to turn up next year and be championship contenders.
I think Pye's a real solid.
Yeah.
I reckon you put him in the right car and he'll probably prove a few people wrong.
He's been just as quick as what Coulthard was last year, and he's been just as quick as what Courtney has been this year. So you can't write him off as this backyard guy.
Keep him and get rid of Courtney. Courtney's very underwhelming. I don't know whether he's lost confidence the last few years and because they're just trying to get the car quick. So obviously you're trying different things all the time. You're not really just driving the car how you want to. I reckon Courtney's days are probably starting to get a little numbered there. So I don't know. I think you see somebody else come through.
I think if you put Courtney in a good car, he's got a championship in him if you put him in a good car. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, maybe.
Now, the thing for me is obviously they had their live broadcast with Ryan Walkinshaw and Michael Andretti, where they were talking about the future, basically, and what Andretti Autosport would be able to bring to the team. One of the big things that they did say would obviously be their aero, which essentially is not going to have that much of an impact because of the control bodies that they've got. But the big thing that they can do is something they work a lot with IndyCar is the dampers, which is something that Walkinshaw for bloody years have had serious issues with.
Yeah.
So for that to happen is that's a good thing. But I think the biggest news for me to take away from that was they are going to be trying as hard as they can to get a new manufacturer.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing to be linked through all of the comes back all of that new news would be to come back to the Zach Brown link through United Autosport, who now is paired with Renault, who have a controlling stake in Nissan. Do we see Nissan move ship into this new team?
Yeah,
depending on what the sort of how the category takes its next few steps with different body shells and things like that. Kelly, they may be happy with the Kellys enough and say, well, you can drive the Ultima. You've brought that to where it is, and we'll look at new avenues.
I think that'll be the deciding factor, though, for Nissan to continue, because I think as it stood, if you asked me 3-4 months ago, I would have almost said that Nissan will probably pull out before the Gen 2 regs. I wouldn't have put money down that they would have continued, because they've been 5 years now where they've basically done nothing. They're still mid-pack people. They've not really increased their speed and consistency over the last couple of.
Excited about the new rulings. I mean, the new engine configuration surely is going to suit them more for something like a GTR engine that's been modified, six-cylinder turbo for that matter. Surely this is going to make life a lot easier for Nissan, because at the moment they're putting a V8 Patrol engine, aren't they? I think it's a
but at the same time though,
issues with that too.
At the same time though, they've come out multiple times, as in Nismo, and said that the GTR would be exclusive to the GT brand, that they wouldn't do it for the supercars.
They could still borrow the engine without that, though.
Well, that's the thing. So I mean, that's only one issue. But as far as looking at the whole picture, if you're going to look at everything put together, Andretti Autosport it's going to be a massive team.
Oh, and, yeah, for sure,
100%. It's like Ford coming out and saying, "Oh, we're gonna put this new Mustang in. We're going to develop this whole new car. Do we want PRA to do it, or do we want DJR to do it?"
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I know which one I'd be putting my money on. And I'm not going to say that the Kellys don't deserve it, because they've put in the hard yards.
They have. But they haven't really been all that successful with that either, have they?
Exactly. No, but at the same time, I don't think they've really been given the right ingredients. Like, you look at, in comparison, like the Mercedes was quite a lot of work, but there was only 2 of them as well. Like, yes, it's probably harder to run 4 cars, but then there's more development.
They also didn't have the backing from Mercedes, though. Whereas,
no, and these guys do.
Kellys have got Nismo. They've got all the backing they need.
You look at the Volvo. Like, yes, again, we're talking about Scotty McLaughlin, who's a very standout driver, and he was probably a massive part of that car being where it was. But they come out and straight away had pace.
Yeah.
Like, he was getting pole positions, winning races.
Yeah.
In a car that was like hot off the press, like freshly designed for the category. Yet Nissan have been doing the hard yards and, like you said, full factory backing. There's no sort of bullshit going on behind the scenes or anything like that. It was just...
I remember, I think a year or so ago now, they shut down an entire Nismo engine building facility in USA just so they could run these 4, I think it was like cylinder heads or something, specifically designed for them to use in these supercars, just so they could get a set of those out and then continue work. So, like, that's the sort of effort that they're going to make sure this is working, and they're still not doing it. Like, they're nowhere near what I would expect if I was a manufacturer. You spend that amount of money and that amount of time, you'd want to be winning races.
Yeah, I'd be stepping in and saying about the drivers, like, Todd Kelly, like, he needs to get out. Like, he said that he loves it, and he said in a little interview not that long ago, if anybody comes along fast, I'll step aside. Mate, a lot of people are faster than you. Get out.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's probably time to step aside.
Rick Kelly is still quick and everything, but, like, maybe keep him in. Simona's a bit different because she's a developing driver for the category and everything else. Like, she's only fresh. She's also bringing in $1 million a year for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can sort
of...
PR
as well, you can get off that too.
Yeah, so you can sort of count her aside as for straight to the top. Caruso, he's so hot and cold, whether that's the car as well. Because I suppose Rick...
Yeah, because I was going to say Rick's
hot and cold as well.
Inconsistent, yeah.
Yeah, so... I don't know.
But I mean, the main thing...
look at it and go, you 2 own it, you're still driving. Yeah, you're saving wages on other people. But maybe we need to give this one last big shot before we pull the pin and actually offer big money to other people. Like, well, they were looking at James Courtney.
Yeah.
At one stage. So, like, it'd be interesting to see somebody like, I don't know, just what it would go like if Scotty was in the car, or if Wingcup was in the car, or Giz, or someone like that, just to see what it'd actually be like. I reckon they should need to get probably Jack LeBrock, pull him in, because he
wouldn't be a bad pickup. He can obviously drive a Nissan.
Yeah, and he's a young fella. He's doing quite well in the lower series. Get rid of Todd Kelly, put him back behind the scenes.
Yeah, I agree.
And put Jack LeBrock in there, even if they just say, we're going to do it for half a dozen rounds, see how you go. Otherwise, we'll put Todd back in. Probably a bit rough on Jack doing like that, but they need to start trying something. Because
But the way I'm seeing it at the moment, you've got Rick Kelly is the highest performing Nissan in 14th in the championship.
Yeah, that is not good enough.
Yeah,
so I don't think Caruso's really squeezing the best out of that car either, though.
No, and that's the problem. Caruso is supposed to be this flagship guy. Come out last year. That's why he gets the number 23, which is the, sainted Nissan number. Because he was supposed to be the factory guy, but he's slower than Rick Kelly at the moment, and frankly, he's not really doing anything to excite me.
No.
So like whether it's the car is just not where he wants it or whatever, but that just ties it back into the original point of, how long's this project gone? Yeah. What do they need to do? Where do you draw the line and say, okay, guys, we're going to stop investing our fucking millions of dollars a year in your program because we're just not netting the results we need.
Yeah.
You'd have to think eventually they'll get sick of doing it. You have to. But that, as you say, maybe the whole Andretti link means that they'll start looking at Walkinshaw and going, well, maybe we won't drop the sport, maybe we'll just drop the Kellys.
even if you just run 6 cars.
Yeah, well, why not? The more the merrier.
That would be a better investment, more money, but to not sort of take away from one to give to another, and then they're still learning.
Well, essentially,
keep it in there. What does Cropton say? Something about robbing Peter to give to Paul or something like that. Take away from one thing, but then it hurts you in the other way.
Essentially, the Walkinshaw Andretti Autosport would become your 888, who then just develop and sell parts onto Kelly's. It means that the Kellys can then drop their massive amount of income, like they don't have to worry about all these expenses, and then probably even work together with Walkinshaw to make a better product on their own. Yeah, they've got 6 cars on the grid then, more data, more drivers.
Yeah,
the potential's there.
Yeah, do it and get in each other's pocket, a little bit like what Penske or DJR were doing off PRA, and then they did it for a little bit while Penske was still there to get a bit of direction.
Yeah,
and then went elsewhere. And also, Lucas Dumbrell Motorsport is going to team up with PRA next year. There's a whole thing going on with the Rex there, and I don't know whether I don't think it's selling the team, but I don't know whether it's more like PRA are going to really probably oversee it a bit more. And then Lucas only part owner. I haven't really looked into it too much, but yeah, there's going to be big changes there. So be interesting to see with that, and also like what we're saying about Techno. So yeah, the next couple of years could be quite interesting with a bit of a shake-up.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty interested to see where it goes. I mean, as I said before, if you asked me 3 to 4 months ago what I think of the direction where the category is going, I would have said that come the end of 2019, after the first year of Gen 2, the category is either going to do one of two things, where it was either going to grow or it was going to die. Now I'm pretty certain it's just going to grow.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely going to grow.
Yeah, because you got your powerhouses who are still there, like PRA and 888. They would have just found another category to race in, and then that one probably would have grown just because they're big teams. But now that you've got Penske as a solid investor, unless something happens and he passes away and they all pull the pin. But now that Andretti's in there, I think the way the whole business is run, I don't think it's just run off like one person.
Oh no, that's
they've
not.
got American competition now, so they've got their own sort of thing going on.
Yeah, and Andretti said, "Don't be surprised if you see more."
Well, that's it. Like during the press conference, he said that I have no doubt that Chip Ganassi's watching this.
Yeah,
and he essentially that's like. If you looked at Supercars 3 years ago, that was 888, PRA, and Walkinshaw going at each other.
Yep.
Yeah, but they're in America and they've got billions of dollars. They're just bringing that fight over here and making this sport bigger. They've got multi-billion-dollar companies, and they bring all their sponsorship with them, their know-how, their interests, their PR, all that sort of stuff. And then a lot of other companies in the country look around and say, oh, I wouldn't mind spending a bit of money to be exposed with these guys. And it just brings up the whole category. That's what I think anyway.
It does. It's already, it's a bit hard to tell because we are Australian, but it's pretty popular, or certainly becoming a lot more popular worldwide. Like there's always been interest there, but it's becoming a lot more popular. And this is certainly helping it as well. And you look around at all the categories, different racing categories, and it is one of the most competitive in the world. It's got to be. It's close, hard racing all the time. It's normally a pretty good show.
It's definitely gaining popularity, and I think the key thing is it's gaining popularity in America, which is a very, very important market for anyone, regardless if it's motorsport or whatever. And obviously it's gaining traction over there. It is a unique, on an international scale thing. It's building momentum. That's good. That means that there's investors, there's money. It's prospering. And I think I've said this before, but I still believe it's things like, as silly as it sounds, it's things like simulator racing games, like your iRacing and your Forza and stuff, including these cars, it's helped to grow it internationally, to help to get a profile out there and get heard of and things like that. I think so.
Well, that exposes it as well, because sometimes it only takes one person or you see something somewhere, which will then expose you to a new form of racing, a new category, something different that you normally wouldn't go looking for on your own. So it's good, and I do like the fact that we are different, because if we did just step into GT, then would be just like a younger, rural version of like the Blancpain series or something like that. We wouldn't be our own thing, would just be that category in a different country.
Well, I mean, not to beat the GT drum because I love it, but there is many successful GT categories which are domestic. You know, you got your ADAC, VLN. America's got the IMSA, the Pirelli World Challenge, Blancpain, British GT. You know, there's many successful GT categories which are localized and domestic, so it wouldn't fail. And Australian GT, as it is currently, it was before this year, expanding at the biggest rate of any GT category in the world. So some changes, some politics, some things came in, negatively affected the way this year worked. But before that, you know, yeah, biggest growth in category across the world. So it's definitely got an appetite to be here. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that I can't see a GT takeover in the next couple of years anyway, because of the way that this is going to take on a whole new image, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
No, it's going to be quite exciting, and it certainly gives us something to talk about in upcoming episodes, because no doubt we'll be hearing new things, and then next year, the big announcement, how it all goes, and all the rest, and then all the talk about manufacturers and the category and everything will be good.
Probably the best thing to sort of finish up the podcast with would be the fact that going into Bathurst, we're all pretty excited, and it's a good outlook for the rest of the season. Yeah, but we basically had 2 championship contenders. Right now, we've got 5.
Yeah. It's brought it right back. It really has. Yeah,
we've blown that out of the water, and she's on. She's good for the rest of the season, and any one of those 5 could really win it. And that, for me, really just makes it that more exciting, especially knowing that you've got the 300 points split across those 2 races at Gold Coast coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I actually like the Gold Coast being a part of this, because it's a very unforgiving track.
Oh, yeah.
Shit can go south very quickly.
Much like Bathurst, I think a few people would agree with you. But we were just saying in Formula One before how it's a shame that, because of one person who was in the fight for the championship, Vettel's out. It's a Hamilton championship now. It's basically his unless he loses it. Now you look at the supercars, and they've actually gone the other way. They needed Scott McLaughlin and Whincup really to have a bad time to bring it all back together.
And they did.
That's exactly what happened at Bathurst, being one of those bastards of the tracks that anything can happen. And bang, we've got 5 people back on the board, which probably looks ridiculous given that Shane Van Gisbergen in 5th is 289 points behind. But the reality is, with these endurance races, there's 300 points available per one. So anything can happen.
Well, it's double points. Like Whincup, he ended up... He went back out just to get another couple of laps done to get 75% of the race done to be clarified as a finisher. He's still got 90 points.
Yeah.
So he was... God, what was it behind Scotty McLaughlin? Like he obviously took... it was... well, it must have been about 7 odd points. 6 points. Or 6 points the difference, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, so like that saved him by going back out again, because those 90 points are huge. But now it's Scotty McLaughlin is our for this year's contender is like the Hamilton, who is in 3rd position. Whincup's like Sebastian, who's in 2nd, and then I suppose Fab's being just pulled back in by just being consistent, I guess. So you've got Scotty McLaughlin's the one to watch to see what happens, and probably Giz.
Giz is going to go great at Gold Coast.
All attention's going to be, for me, is on Shane Van Gisbergen for the rest of the season. Well, you can see at Bathurst
just
towards
see
the
if
end.
you can bridge that gap. Yep.
He wasn't fucking around. Like, he was being very desperate, but he obviously thought it's a bit of a win it or bin it situation.
Yeah.
Obviously, he gave it a few little bins, but yeah, it's good. The intensity's there. It's good.
It's going to be good.
Yep.
It's going to be a good season to to play out. But look, as we approach the hour mark, I think I am going to thank everybody who has joined us for this episode. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. And, of course, feel free to check out our other podcasts on YouTube or simply by visiting our website at www.flagtoflag.ml. And, of course, last but not least, thanks for joining me, Ryan and Willie.
No worries.
No dramas.
Well, we look forward to talking to you all next time, but it's bye for now.